With Dr. Augustine Mahiga. He is the Foreign Affairs Minister from Tanzania. Kariba, Minister.
Thank you very much indeed.
Right. Let's start with your role as Troika Chair. I'm sure it was a very difficult task, taken into consideration that we had two countries, Lesotho and the DRC, that perhaps gave a lot of you leaders sleepless nights. How was it in terms of finding solutions to resolve the political, security and peace issues in those countries?
We took that responsibility to chair the Troika organ on politics, defense and security with tremendous appreciation and honor, because we knew we would be facing some very challenging issues, in particular with Lesotho and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. But we take pride to say overall, we look at the overall context in which our job proceeded. We take pride on the fact that within SADC, of the 15 member states, the democratic tradition and culture is taking roots. Issues of democracy, elections, human rights, rule of law, empowerment of women, and all the protocols related to that are being implemented in a very satisfactory manner. Nonetheless, after that, we had challenges in Lesotho, which are related to the need for reforms and national dialogue, and precipitated the snap elections, but we are glad that SADC took the responsibility and the challenge, and we are able to see Lesotho go through those elections and the new government has been installed. In the Democratic of the Congo, work is still in progress. They are committed to having elections in accordance to the 2016 agreement, but the date might change. The Independent Electoral Commission is going to give us a new date. SADC will continue to be seized with that, with the appointment with a resident special envoy in Kinshasa on behalf of SADC. But also we have received very satisfactory reports from the DRC that the security situation that was worrisome in the Kasai provinces has now come under control. We are mindful of the role of the SADC countries within MONUSCO, the United Nations stabilization force there, and the intervention brigade consisting of South Africa, Tanzania, and Malawi have doing a good job. And overall, we think the general trend within SADC is satisfactory, and we hand over this responsibility with a positive note to the next chair, which is Angola.
Right. We still have a couple of months left before a date is announced for the DRC to go to elections. What does Tanzania propose would be an interim plan to make sure that the political instability that persists in that country does not create bigger problems for the region, as there are already as many as we can think of?
We would advise that the electoral process that has already started, the CENI, that's the Independent Electoral Commission, has already registered 39 million people out of an expected total voters of 42 million. But that is a massive and a very challenging task. In a country the size of Western Europe, even bigger, a subcontinent by African standards, it needs logistical support, it needs financial support, technical support, administrative support. And I think what the DRC now needs is support from all over, from SADC, from the United Nations, from the rest of the world, because the values for which these elections will represent do represent not only SADC committed values, but really global values, and they need to be helped. But also the DRC on its part has to put in place some very fundamental pre-electoral institutional requirements. One was the appointment of the Prime Minister, which they have done. Then it was the appointment of the President of the Monitoring Committee and the passing of an electoral law in Parliament. And I think this needs to be put in place. But at the same time, we needed to be sure that the security situation in the Kivus, in the Kasais, continues to stabilize. And that needs a joint effort. But also the following up and assistance to the DRC must be a multi-stake assignment. SADC, African Union, the United Nations, the Great Lakes Initiative, the European Union, the Francophonie. We must all work in unison to help the DRC.
And as SADC leaders, chair of Troika that handled this a sensitive issue, do you think leaders in the DRC have the right attitude and political will to see these resolutions through?
We must see this against the background of a turbulent history in the DRC. This is the second time the elections are being postponed, but the transition has been well taken, and President Kabila has undertaken a commitment to oversee successful elections and thereby cede power to whatever would be the outcome of the elections. It's something that needs to be handled with care. It's something that needs to be handled with vision and foresight, because there are so many challenges which are interrelated. It's not only the political process, it's the security challenges, the human rights, it's the massive humanitarian challenges, and the sheer size of the country with a history that has always been problematic. But we take pride to the fact that the DRC is now undertaking to train a special force that will probably take over from MONUSCO, the larger MONUSCO of almost 20,000. But they're still insisting that the intervention force of the three countries, totaling about 3,000, must continue, because this is a specialized force that is capable of making prompt interventions in areas where at this time there are symptoms of asymmetrical warfare. Asymmetrical warfare in the Kivus has a combination of guerrilla, terrorist, and also militia-based violence. And the intervention brigade needs to be equipped and given additional training to be able to cope with this emerging asymmetrical warfare. And the force which the DRC has committed to train, to take over from some of the functions of the core United Nations force, need to be equipped, trained, and empowered to cope with these challenges.
Now to another important point that was top of the SADC agenda, and that is inter-regional trade. What have some of the leaders agreed on in terms of the priority points that need to be focused on to make that a realization in the region?
The essence of regional integration, as you probably know, hinges on three factors: the free movement of goods and services, the free movement of capital for investment, and the free movement of labor and the people. And these are the issues that has preoccupied us. The trade statistics have declined in recent years, but we hope this will keep on improving. We are seeing improvement mainly because of the environmental challenges that some countries were facing, the drought and the economic slowdown globally as a whole. And it is now at around 2% increase, and it's going up to 3%. But this is really the essence. And with the emphasis on industrialization and the beneficiation of minerals, we hope that the agricultural sector will adequately feed in the industrial strategy and give to specialization within the context of the SADC countries to increase the trade and the specialization that each country faces. The opportunities are enormous. And every time we talk of the SADC trade factor, we must also consider that some countries like Tanzania are also members of the East African community. And this is an added advantage because in a way it provides access to other markets. And now discussions are going on so that SADC, the East African community, and COMESA may come to have arrangement to broaden the free trade between these countries and make trade is the sine qua non of regional integration, not only in SADC, but in the African continent as well.
As a Minister of Foreign Affairs, you also sat in the panel that had to look at other countries' applications, countries that want to be part of the SADC body. We're talking about the Union of Comoros and the Republic of Burundi. Can you perhaps update us? What's the final verdict on that?
On the basis of the current criteria of admitting members, the Union of the Comoros has qualified, and a decision has been made that they will be admitted as the 16th member of the Southern African Development Corporation. Burundi will continue to be considered on the basis of the current criteria, and they'll be informed accordingly of the areas that need to be addressed and to be improved. But after that, I think SADC will have to go through a process of reviewing the entire criteria of admitting new members and to see whether we need new members, but it will depend on the new benchmarks, criteria and direction that will be agreed upon and reported to the next summit.
Minister, lastly, were you happy with the 37th SADC summit?
Very happy indeed, because this coincides with the silver jubilee of SADC. And it happens in Pretoria, in South Africa. And it comes at a time when Tanzania has just completed its responsibility as chair of the Troika organ within SADC. And the accomplishments that have been presented have all speaking very loudly that we are on course, and the promise is very encouraging. And I'm very happy indeed that we have made a tremendous progress from the humble beginnings of the frontline states. We are now coming to the realities of economic cooperation, but still without forgetting the core agenda that underpins our origins: peace, security, and stability.
Asante sana, Minister. Thank you so much. There we were in conversation with the Minister of Foreign Affairs from, of course, Tanzania, and that is Dr. Augustina, who joined us here. And I think perhaps the fresh news that we can confirm at this stage, what he just said here, is that after this summit, the SADC bloc will no longer be 15 members, but 16 members. So that is new news that we can bring to you at this stage. The Union of Comoros has been included. Their application was successful, so that country is now officially part of the SADC body. So that also means that ultimately the footprint of SADC is now much larger. As you know, that that union is already a part of other bodies in the African continent, and now they're part of this body as well, meaning that their vision of an integrated Africa is coming to a realization. Let's go to my colleague Mweli, who's